Hello and welcome to this mini course on Amazon branding. In this short course, we will be looking at what branding is, how important it is for the success of your Amazon business, and look at the best practice for the creation of your very own brand for Amazon and hopefully beyond. I also want to mention what this course isn't about. So it isn't step-by-step instructions on how to submit a brand on Amazon's registry, for example. There are plenty of videos about that. So this video will explain more the marketing and psychological side of branding and how you can leverage branding to increase your sales on Amazon. So quick info about me, as I guess you're wondering, why should I trust this guy? So my name is Martin and I'm an e-commerce marketing specialist. So what that means is that I basically look more at marketing and customer psychology on Amazon to help my clients increase their sales. So I currently work full-time for a small company, but as I want to help small individuals as well, I decided I wanted to create this course in my spare time. And so as I have limited free time and I'm not a videographer, I apologize in advance if the formatting isn't on par with the professional YouTube creators out there, but I'm confident that the content of this course will be useful to you in any case. So anyways, without further ado, let's get right into it and enjoy. Why brand on Amazon? You probably haven't heard of branding on Amazon as being a critical aspect of making sales. After all, don't people just buy the cheapest item with the most good reviews? Well, what if I told you that if you are a small-scale seller or you want to become one, the most important thing you can do to make as much money as possible on Amazon right now is to build your own strong brand. Sure, pricing and reviews are very important, but every seller knows that, and almost every single one has both already optimized. But the power of branding is still largely ignored, and that it will only keep becoming more and more important as time passes. In this lesson, we're going to explore why creating a strong brand can not only increase your sales, but will most likely make the difference between you being squeezed out of business and making enough money to live a comfortable life from your Amazon sales alone. Now, I'm not one of these gurus promising you millions of dollars in one secret hack. Anyone with a brain will know that making a good living takes hard work and dedication. But it also requires being good at understanding how a successful business works. And this is exactly what I aim to provide with my courses, articles, and videos. First of all, as more and more sellers join any market, there is a natural increase in competition. This makes sense. I mean, imagine you're on a sunny beach in the middle of summer and you want to buy an ice cream. If there's only one seller, that ice cream seller is almost guaranteed to get a sale. However, if there are 2 or 3 sellers, you can be sure that at least 2 of them will not make a sale from you. That's logical, right? This means that every seller is going to have to appear more appealing than the others in order to get you to buy the ice cream from them, which can be through offering more value or, more commonly, offering a cheaper price. This is particularly true for Amazon. As more sellers enter the market looking to get a share of the pie, there's going to be more and more pressure on each one to reduce their prices to the point where the profit margins get so thin that it's not even worth selling anymore. Can your business offer the cheapest price? If you're a small-scale seller who wants to earn a decent income, most likely not. Why? Because you're not going to benefit from the same cost savings as big businesses do. They can accept thinner margins because they are established and they benefit from economies of scale. Having a strong brand means that you can more easily escape these price wars as you differentiate yourself from other sellers and offer some unique value that's communicated through your very own brand. Basically, you're no longer trying to offer the same thing as all the other sellers. You make yourself different, which means that you get to have a lot more power over the price and, as such, the margins that you make. Your ice creams are not the same as all other ice cream sellers. And that's why you can ask for a price that's going to give you the income that you desire. Secondly, there is a growing trend for brands that align with the consumer's values and beliefs rather than just providing what's on the tin. A large survey conducted by the renowned consulting company Accenture found that today 62% of customers have their purchasing decisions heavily dependent on how ethical and authentic a brand is, and 74% want more transparency about how a company sources their products, their content, and how they have them produced. Kevin Quiring, managing director at Accenture Strategy, states that in this era of radical transparency, consumers are voicing their opinions, values, and beliefs, scrutinizing the actions of organizations and their leadership and holding them accountable. They can see through inauthenticity and won't tolerate it. Consumers' voices can change the financial trajectory of companies. They are more than just buyers. They are active stakeholders who are investing their time and attention and want to feel a sense of shared purpose. The winners in this era will not be passive bystanders. Generic products sold on Amazon without clear branding cannot leverage this growing trend, as all they do is sell a product and list their features. Sure, they might write that they are respectful of the environment and are produced ethically, but how can they really gain the trust of customers when there's no brand story, no promise, no personality behind the products? By building your own brand on Amazon, you enable yourself to give your customers what they are after, even if you aren't the cheapest seller around. Thirdly, Amazon is very aware of this growing trend as well as the importance of maintaining customer trust, which is why they have not only been cracking down on fake reviews on low-quality generic products that customers rightfully have been disappointed by, but also started selling their own brands in an attempt to leverage Amazon's reputation as a customer-centric brand to keep customers coming to their platform and remove the growing negative reputation that came from these low-quality, brandless products and their waves of fake reviews. What does this mean for you? Well, Amazon is looking for quality brands that can truly deliver quality products that will satisfy their customers and keep them coming to their platform. By building your own brand, you not only increase your perceived value in the eyes of your customers, but you also play the game the way Amazon wants you to play it, which means that the platform will have every reason to promote you and give you exclusive benefits. In a nutshell, there has never been a better time to build strong brands on Amazon and create massive revenues from them while most sellers catch up with this opportunity. Are you ready to learn more about branding and how to create a strong brand? Then, I welcome you to this mini course and I invite you to start lesson 1, where we will look at the definition of brands and branding. So what is a brand, what is branding, and why should you care? If I had to summarize this lesson into 3 quick bullet points, these would be: brands are promises that consumers believe in. Brand building involves creating trust in who you are, what you stand for, and what you will provide. 3. Brand strengthening involves repeating and keeping your promises. A brand, in essence, is a promise about who you are and what benefits you deliver that gets reinforced every single time people come in contact with any facets of you or your business. Branding, as such, is the process of building this positive collection of perceptions in your customers' minds. It is effectively defining the promised benefits that your customers will enjoy from experiencing a brand and keeping these promised benefits over and over again. Think about some big brands like Nike or Coca-Cola. Whenever you see or considering buying a pair of Nike shoes, you have certain expectations from them, a certain level of quality, and a certain representation of what it would mean to buy Nike shoes. Now, you don't expect the quality of these Nike shoes the same way you'd expect a brand that you've never heard of, simply because the years of branding have instilled certain expectations regarding what the product will deliver. Similarly, for Coca-Cola, you have certain expectations that you're certain will be met. The biggest one being that every bottle of Coca-Cola will have the same taste. It seems obvious to us now, but imagine a cola brand you've never heard of. How can you accurately judge whether the flavor will be pleasant or not before purchasing it? Of course, you can't. But with a solid brand, which makes the promise that the flavor will always be as expected no matter where the bottle is produced or sold, you don't hesitate as much. You know what to expect, and this expectation is reinforced every time it is met and eroded every time it isn't. The reason why Coca-Cola and Nike are such powerful brands is because they have excelled at maintaining their promises and as such, build a solid promise over years of branding. So what do brands do? A brand is constructed around 4 core pillars: product differentiation, value, information, and consistency. Brands create trust and emotional attachment with the goal to create a long-term competitive advantage that can weather price wars, poor communication, exceptional customer dissatisfaction, and similar troubles often experienced by businesses. Let's look at a practical example on Amazon: water filters. Right away, on page 1, you can see that the results page is dominated by a single brand, Brita. Now, water filters aren't complex electronics that no one can reproduce. However, Brita has been working on establishing itself as the best brand for water filters since 1966. Decades of branding have resulted in it being the leading choice for water filters, despite fierce competition on Amazon, especially since water filters can easily be sourced from China and retailed at a similar quality level but a much lower price. When you search for a water filter and you see Brita, not only are you more likely to purchase if you've heard of Brita before, which increases sales velocity, which increases review velocity, which in turn increases appeal due to a higher number of reviews, and so you've got a positive reinforcement circle. But you're also much more likely to purchase Brita again if you ever need another water filter. In the context of this product, branding is actually very useful, as water cartridges are staple goods, aka goods that are repurchased regularly. As long as your initial experience of the branded product meets or exceeds your expectations, you're very likely to stick to that brand. Once again, this highlights the importance of keeping the promises that your brand makes. This water filter example shows just how important branding is when it comes to selling products that you can expect your customer to want to repurchase again at some point. Think of products like candles, supplements, golf balls, instant sticks, tea bags, fertilizer, underwear, marker pens, and so on. If you're 100% happy with the product that you bought, why wouldn't you buy it again? Let's go even further. If you're 100% happy with a brand's product, why wouldn't you assume that the other products won't satisfy you as well? Imagine you're looking for marker pens because you like to keep physical notes, all right? If you see a listing with a brand that has a professional look and promises that its pens will last 50% longer than the generic ones, have a more comfortable grip so you can use it for hours without discomfort and doesn't squeak, you might go for it. That's the promise here. Now, if your experience confirms this promise, you will most likely look to buy the same ones next round. Now, what if this brand also promises you a whiteboard that's super easy to install and doesn't get dirty? Wouldn't you be more likely to trust this promise compared to some unknown competitor who makes the exact same promise, but you don't know them? Now you can start to see the huge benefits of having a brand. It's hard enough to find new customers on Amazon, and it can be quite costly too. Imagine spending $3 on PPC to get a sale on a $10 item. If your margin was around 50%, which is already quite high, you've reduced your profits by more than half. Now imagine that customer buys, but since there's no brand perception, the next time round they just buy whatever they happen to see. and never interact with your business again. With this customer, you've made a profit of just $2. Let's take the same scenario, but with a strong brand this time. You still spend the initial $3 on PPC to get the customer's attention, but instead of going for whatever they find after that, they are much more likely to buy from your brand again. Except this time, you don't have to spend a single cent. You don't just double your profits there. You go from $2 in profits to $7. That's 3.5 times the profit. And that's not even taking into account upsells or the customer trusting your brand enough to purchase different products of yours on which you can make even more profit per item. This was a very simple example, but it illustrates well the power of branding. If you've ever wondered why some big companies in very competitive industries like Coca-Cola or McDonald's can spend billions on brand marketing, you've got it right there. Customer lifetime value. Now, here's an important thing to keep in mind. Your brand isn't your logo or the word you put in your title in front of your product name. You see a lot of listings with some strange so-called brand nowadays. But as we've explained, branding is much more than this. Glendon, Douglas, Trevor, all words aimed at creating empty brands that have no personality, no benefit, or promise. Your brand is the perception of your customers of what you offer. It's what people believe you stand for. For example, Apple may be selling electronic devices, but its brand stands for thinking differently, which is then reflected in product benefits through revolutionary user experience and design. With each new product launch that successfully conveys this idea, Apple further reinforces its brand in the mind of its customers. Brands make selling easier. In a world where there are more and more products and sellers, it can be overwhelming to know who to choose. Through branding, you distinguish yourself by creating a profile in your customer's mind, and critically, a positive one. And that automatically pushes them to choose you over your competitors. Let's imagine you're selling water bottles now. How many other sellers do you think are selling this on Amazon.com right now? More than a single page worth, I can assure you. So, as a customer, which one do you choose? They're all somewhat similar. It's tough to tell the difference. In fact, you might not even choose any due to analysis paralysis or make the wrong choice due to decision fatigue. And you might end up vowing never to buy filters or bottles from Amazon ever again. This makes branding particularly important for e-commerce and especially Amazon, because as more and more competitors come in, but customers' browsing time or option weighing time doesn't increase proportionally, any kind of preconception about the features and benefits of a product becomes an important shortcut for the customer, and thus a critical asset for your business. What is product differentiation? Simply put, product differentiation is the process of making your product stand out to your target audience from your competition. So, why differentiate your products? And how is that relevant to branding? Product differentiation is critical for branding, as being perceived as providing a unique offer is what is going to give you a business advantage. If there isn't anything different, or rather no perceived difference from the customer's point of view about what you offer compared to what other sellers might offer, then there's only one single factor that matters: price. As we've seen previously, competing on price is most often to the advantage of large companies that benefit from economies of scale, which means they have a reduced cost per unit and they can sustain smaller margins and as such offer lower prices than other sellers. As a small-scale seller, differentiation is going to be critical for long-term success. Let's take an extreme example: bottled water. Water is just water, right? How can you brand or differentiate that? Let's take a look at the first page results for bottled water on Amazon.com. The first result, Essentia, differentiates itself by offering water infused with electrolytes. Poland Spring puts itself forward as natural 100% spring water. Acquapana brands itself as exotic Italian water with historical roots, which is the perfect accompaniment to fine foods and wines. Crystal Geyser focuses on a better price point for bulk purchase, somewhat similarly to Nestlé's Pure Life, which however differentiates itself by being purified through reverse osmosis. Apparently, you need to be a scientist to choose your water nowadays. Finally, you have Fiji, which differentiates itself with being natural artesian water and having twice as many natural electrolytes through volcanic rock filtering. Now, the actual health difference between each of those might actually be minimal, and the difference in taste almost imperceptible. But this goes to show the importance and impact of product differentiation. Here, even with a product that one might think at first glance to be impossible to differentiate, clever marketers and brand managers have managed to position their products to have different features and so appeal to different kinds of customers. Perhaps some want the most natural water there is. Maybe some exercise often and heard that they need as many electrolytes as they can swallow. Maybe they like their water to be exotic and come from the other side of the globe. In any case, they fall in different categories, which allows for different kinds of products to be a better choice in the eyes of the same customers compared to the other alternatives. You will want your brand to follow a similar structure where your brand and its products are differentiated to be the best choice for a specific group of customers. That way, you can be sure that you will make sales regardless of the price or rating of other listings. Value. Arguably the most important word in business. Everything about business can be linked to value, or more precisely, perceived value. In this lesson, we'll first define value and summarize its importance in creating successful brands. First, let's look at its raw definition. According to Investopedia.com, value is the monetary, material, or assessed worth of an asset, good, or service. Let's take a simple example. Let's say you want to buy a pencil. The value of this pencil to you will be equal to how much this pencil can contribute to a better or happier life in your eyes. Yes, it's probably not much, which is why you will most likely be willing to give an equally small amount of your own valuable property, money, in exchange for a pencil. Here, a critical thing to remember is that value is not something fixed. It completely depends on the person's perception of what the product can bring to them. Let's take another simple example that perfectly illustrates this. A bottle of water again. How valuable would a bottle of water be to you right now, in the comfort of your home, with large amounts of water being, hopefully, easily available? Probably not much. Now imagine you are flying over a desert and disaster strikes, and you find yourself stranded in a scorching hot desert hundreds of miles away from the nearest town. You walk for days in the blazing heat, your mouth is dry, your thirst is unbearable. How valuable would a bottle of water be to you then? Would you be willing to give all the money you're carrying with you just to get one single bottle? I hope you never have to go through this, but this is a pretty good example. Understanding that just like beauty, value is in the eye of the beholder is a critical concept to ensure the long-term success of your brand and by extension, your business. You might offer a product that you see as valuable, but if no one else does, it just won't sell. In the context of branding, you will want your brand to showcase this value the best way it can. What value does your brand promise? Let's look again at the water bottle examples from the previous lesson. Each brand is portraying certain features that can be viewed as valuable by specific customers. For example, athletes might value the branded water with extra electrolytes. If the brand communicates that it provides beverages specifically made for athletes, this brand has successfully created extra value in the eyes of athletes, while it will have created little value for, say, seniors or pregnant mothers. So, what kind of value will your brand look to bring? And will it indeed be perceived as valuable by your target customers? Before we continue, I'd just like to quickly do the obligatory please subscribe. Well, I mean, you should have now a rough idea of what I do. So if you found the content interesting so far, and especially if you're into learning more about marketing, business strategy, sales psychology, then this is channel for you. So by subscribing, you're not only convincing me to spend more time to make videos for you, but you also get to know straight away when new information comes out. And as we know, you should improve your listings and business as soon as you can. So now that that's out of the way, let's go back to the lessons. What is meant by information? Everybody understands the word information, but what does it mean in the context of branding? In the previous lesson, we looked at value and its importance for building a successful business and brand. If value is what will make customers buy, information is the way that value can be perceived by your customers. Let's take the water bottle example once more. The value proposition can be that the water you offer has twice as many electrolytes as any other brand of water bottles on the market. But if no one knows about this because it isn't properly communicated throughout your listing, this value proposition is useless. This is why having all the information about your brand's promises and values is critical to make it successful. A treasure is worthless if no one remembers where it's buried. One of the big advantages of branding is that any brand level information is naturally transferred onto other products under the same brand. Let's stick to the brand whose value proposition lies in high levels of electrolytes, Essentia. Once the information that this brand is about providing the necessary minerals to athletes and is properly communicated to a customer, I mean, I don't know if that is truly their offer, but let's just assume it is, then this piece of information will not only provide perceived value in the eyes of this customer if that is a feature that they indeed value, but it will also stick to their minds if they browse any other Essentia product without needing to be directly exposed to this piece of information again. In the example above, the information given was more about a product level value point, that is, that the water has high amounts of minerals. In the context of branding, the information would most likely be something like, we're all about providing the essential nutrients to athletes no matter the time of day. They might offer an Essentia amino drink or special powder, and the customer has just been exposed to the brand's information from the water bottle listing, will most likely assume straight away that these products will share the same purpose, let's say, even if they haven't read it on these products' listings. Why is this such a great advantage on Amazon? The amount of information you can communicate on Amazon versus your own website, for example, is really restricted. You only really have a title, a few pictures, some bullet points, and an EBC to communicate what your product is really about. On top of that, you have to compete with dozens or hundreds of other listings, and for expensive ads, you don't have a way to get more screen space. This means that any method to communicate as much information as possible with as little as possible is a critical factor for success on Amazon. It's easy for customers to get into information overload and simply ignore a lot of what's on the screen. But through branding, you can create a bank of information, let's say, which shortcuts everything else. And pulling information from this mental bank is automatic and requires much less mental effort than painstakingly going through blocks of text. Our brains are made for seeking shortcuts and saving energy. If you have a preconceived idea of what a product is about, and you can be sure that this idea is correct, then you're much more likely to purchase it if it fits your needs. Consistency. Why is it a core pillar of branding? Let's start with an example. Let's say you're looking to buy some sports shoes online, all right? You see a pair that catches your eye, let's say the brand Sporters. They have an athletic design and seem rather comfortable. You read the brand description and get told that the brand is all about reimagining sportswear for the modern athlete. Why not? Fair enough. Now, you go on their website and look to browse more models. Maybe you'll find one that's even better. And as you scroll down through their shop page, you start to see some casual leather shoes with a large fit. You're intrigued. I mean, these don't look very sporty. Out of curiosity, you check the description, and this time the brand description reads, "Sporters for maximum everyday comfort." At this point, you're probably confused about what the brand stands for, and your trust in the initial statement has dropped like a stone from a cliff. What is this brand actually about? Do they just make any shoes they can and just slap a slogan on it? If you're like most customers, you would now go back to your initial search and avoid this brand altogether. This is an example of the importance of consistency. Maybe both pair of shoes are of excellent quality and would be of great value to their respective target markets. However, because the brand is inconsistent in its message, it completely destroys any sense of trust. There's actually an old proverb that I feel is quite relevant in this case. If you chase two rabbits, you will lose them both. Consistency is about sending the same message and offering the same promise regardless of the sales channel, platform, and time. There's a reason why Nike has had the same slogan, "Just do it," since 1988. A repeated message is one that sticks, and it must not conflict with other messages. This applies fully to brands on Amazon, especially since it's so easy to browse products from the same brand through the brand stores, through the people also buy, comparison table in the EBC, and sponsored ads. Giving the same consistent brand information throughout your listing will further reinforce the conviction in your customers that you actually are about what you say you're about, which will lead to greater trust and, as such, more sales. You have three types of branding structures in relation to your business: monolithic, endorsed, and pluralistic. Monolithic are brands that rely on a single overarching brand as the main brand, with smaller sub-brands branching off. For example, Google's products are all using Google's overarching brand as leverage. You have Google Search, Google Maps, Google Books, Google Translate, and so on. Imagine how much more difficult it would have been to build trust in a maps or translation software if you didn't even know it was from Google. Endorsed brands are brands that stand on their own, but still have the visible endorsement of a larger parent brand. For instance, Kellogg's Cellular brands often have a little Kellogg's above the brand's logo to further reinforce confidence into this child brand. This is particularly potent when you have an existing brand that is already established in your market and you sort of want to fast track the development of a secondary brand, often a more specialized brand. And you do this by leveraging the existing reputation of this parent brand. The difference between monolithic and endorsed structures is that endorsed brands do not fully associate their identity with the parent brand. So, for instance, while Nestlé might be the endorsing brand for sub-brands like the cereals Nesquik or Cheerios, it lets these brands be the major focus point instead of the branding itself as the main brand. So, in this case, you'd still hear someone say that they are buying Cheerios and not Nestlé's Cheerios, whereas you wouldn't have someone refer to Google Maps as just Maps. Endorsed brands are not very common on Amazon, especially for small sellers, as the parent brand often needs to reach a high level of development before child brands can make use of this endorsement. Else it would be confusing for the customer, as instead of being faced with one unknown brand, they are faced with two. Pluralistic brands or parent silent brands are brands that are not actively presented as being part of a main group. A famous example is the conglomerate Procter & Gamble, who have brands like Pampers, Pringles, Gillette, but which no customer directly associates with P&G. So why would you want to separate your brands? Why not link them all together so each can benefit from the development of the others? This kind of brand architecture is useful when a company wants to enter markets with similar product categories or product categories that fit the company's business type, but which require a different brand personality and promise. Remember our example with Brita in lesson 1? Well, the parent company for Brita happens to be the Clorox company. You might have heard of the brand Clorox. In case you haven't, it is a brand that offers chemical drain cleaning products. So not really a great name for a water purifier though, is it? So while Clorox might be a great brand to promise powerful chemical cleaning, no one wants to associate drinking water with potentially harmful chemicals. However, the parent company benefits from its expertise and operational setups to provide solutions in the general domain of water management system, both in drainage and in purification. This is why it made complete sense to tap into both markets and create two separate, unrelated brands to appeal to the different customer segments. For your business on Amazon, you might find yourself in a similar situation where your business can also tap into somewhat similar product categories with different customer expectations, in which case you will want to separate your brands to ensure that each one is specialized for its target audience. So which brand structure is right for you? If you're a small-scale seller, then I highly recommend to go for a single brand first, and as you look to explore more markets, adopt a pluralistic approach. The other two are only particularly good once you have developed a famous and strong reputation within your industry. By having a separate brand for each market, you can focus your brands on their respective customers without the hassle of potential mismatch or drawbacks from conflicting brand identities. This is especially the case if you have a business advantage which you can leverage across a range of different markets. As mentioned before, this is the case for Clorox, where their expertise in all sorts of water purification allows them then to compete in vastly different markets with completely different requirements, and so they require completely different brands and identities. Once you know how you will approach branding, you can move on to researching your markets. As you can imagine, it's hard to create a successful brand that appeals to your customers if you don't even know who they are and what they see as valuable. What unmet needs do your customers have? What makes them want to purchase your products? What experience are they looking for? How do they like to be talked to? What are their values? Once you have gathered enough data to fully answer these questions, you will want to create a customer persona that summarizes well your target customers. In case you do not know what a customer persona is, this is basically like creating the profile of a fake person who would be as close as possible to the perfect representation of your customers. Like if you had to merge all your target customers into a single person, this would be them. Often this persona is created using a sort of CV or resume, which highlights the persona's demographics, social status, personality traits, likes and dislikes, and so on. So this is particularly useful as it's a lot easier to remember a person whenever you're busy building your brand rather than remembering a long list of bullet points. Besides finding out who your customers are, you will want to research your competitors, what products are already being provided to meet the needs of your customers. So what are they lacking? And from this, what is it that your business, and then by extension your brand, can provide that's of value to your customers that your competitors cannot provide? This step is extremely important for the welfare of your brand, as being misinformed about any of these points can just break it. You may sell scented candles and decide to start a brand focusing on Mediterranean flowers because you saw demand, but no competitors. Only to find out months of hard work later that the demand you saw was actually inexistent, or actually there was a massive competitor who actually just went temporarily out of stock and sucks up all of the traffic. Don't forget to vary your sources of information. Don't rely on just a single keyword tool or the opinions of a few friends who could be biased. Search the web, ask on forums, create online surveys, ask a wide range of friends and family, conduct individual interviews with potential customers if necessary. Do what you need to be as certain as possible that your research is correct. Brand positioning refers to establishing where your brand fits in your target market, how it's different from existing brands, and what unique value you are offering to your customers. In today's world where consumers are easily overwhelmed by the sheer amount of choice there is, their mind is focused on contrast. What makes a product or a brand stand out from others, which makes positioning extremely important. If you sell bottled water on Amazon and it looks exactly like a generic water bottle that doesn't distinguish itself in any way to any other bottle of water, why would anyone want to buy your product except for one thing, if it was the cheapest of them all? As we've explained in lesson 3, which covered product differentiation, this is not a viable strategy for small sellers. Let's say you're on the other side and looking for a bottle of water on Amazon. Almost all bottles will have a standardized design, plastic, transparent, with a label wrapped around the center line. Now imagine if between all of these you saw a black, fully metallic bottle priced at twice the average market price with a premium font saying just H2O. How striking would that be? Now, I'm not talking about whether this would be a good idea or not. That's irrelevant for this point. The point is that you would most likely remember this particular design and this brand much more than the others. And getting your customers to remember your product or brand is critical to establish a memory base of that product or brand, which you can then build every time your customers are exposed to your brand. There are many strategies to position your brand. Here are some of the most common ones: price-based positioning strategy, quality-based positioning strategy, convenience-based positioning strategy, customer service positioning strategy, market leader strategy, innovation leader strategy, and social value strategy. There are many more strategies that you can adopt, which is part of the fun of building your brand, as there's pretty much limitless potential for creativity here. Each strategy has its own pros and cons, and which strategy is best for your brand is completely dependent on your customers, their needs, and your products. You can also combine different positioning strategies together to create a unique feel to your brand. In fact, many brands adopt a mix of these different strategies to further differentiate themselves from competing brands which may already have gone full throttle into a single positioning strategy, effectively filling that spot in the customer's mind. In the case of premium black water bottle, for instance, this would most likely be a combination of quality-based positioning strategy and innovation leader strategy. You will want your strategy to follow your business advantages. For instance, for the sale of premium water bottles, you will want to ensure that you have some form of valuable advantage in terms of providing premium water bottles between the very first step of design and the final listing, which your competitors would have a tough time reproducing. Basically, you want to position yourself somewhere where you know you're going to be secure in the long term and be able to maintain strong sales through competitive advantages, and not somewhere where you do not have any advantages, just like you wouldn't build a house in the middle of a lake if you didn't know how to swim. One thing to keep in mind though, be careful about not trying to cover too many positions. Remember the saying, if you chase two rabbits, you will lose them both. Trying to position yourself on too many aspects will most likely result in your brand not being positioned at all. And instead of increased success, it will most likely end up feeling just generic and uninspiring. I mean, would you go to a restaurant who offered you the world's best, tastiest, biggest, healthiest, cheapest, environmentally friendly, meat-tasting vegan burger? I mean, like most people, you end up believing they are exaggerating and are untrustworthy, and you might end up believing that they don't meet any of these criteria at all. Furthermore, having an unclear position or shifting position can create a lot of confusion for your customers. Imagine you see a product with a premium-looking design which tries to position itself as the cheapest option in the market. Let's say if Rolex suddenly started selling watches under $100 with 70% off, best value signs all over the product. Wouldn't that put you off? In fact, you probably would think that these must be fake, which is a great testament to Rolex's branding, who managed to position and brand themselves so well in the luxury watch market that it became pretty much impossible to believe that they have made a high price point a literal point of value. Once you know your customer, their needs, the products you will offer, and how you will position yourself in the market, it's time to define your brand based on all of these factors. It will entail defining your offer, why you offer it, and why your customers should trust you. It will also detail how you plan to hold these commitments. So, for example, your company culture, and yes, even if you're selling alone for now, your operations, your sourcing methods, and so on. As such, your brand will have two facets. The front end of your brand, or what your customers will actively experience from your brand, which englobes your brand's name, logo, tagline, overall design, marketing content, packaging, and so on. And the back end or base of your brand, which contains your company culture, mission, value, and work processes, which ensures that the front end is correctly applied. Let's create a mock version using our previous example, still based on water bottles. Let's say you find an opportunity to enter the water bottle market and position yourself as a premium brand with water that's 100% certain to be free from modern pollutants. How are we going to define your brand from this? Let's first look at your offer. In this case, it would be something along the lines of, we provide beverages that are completely free of any modern pollutants. As core brand values, you could go for health conscious, transparent, and environmentally friendly. Once again, this will be very dependent on what your research has shown you as being potentially viable. Next, how are you planning to keep this promise? Let's say that you've managed to find a supplier who sources water made out of 1 kilometer deep Antarctic ice deposits which date back to the prehistoric era. Why not? Following this, you could go with something like, our water is exclusively sourced from deep Antarctic ice deposits that have remained pure since the dinosaur era. From this, and assuming that your customer research has shown that your target customers are particularly health conscious and perhaps a little bit overly paranoid about pollutants in their water, you would want to define your brand values around absolute purity and advocating for a natural lifestyle. Of course, if this were to be true, you would have to go beyond just sourcing pure water. You would have to ensure that the whole process from sourcing to bottling to shelving is consistent with this philosophy. Remember, consistency is key. If you profess that your brand is about complete purity, and then you have your pure water bottled in cheap, leaky plastic, you risk losing all credibility. In this step, remember to keep a very close eye on your market and customer research along with the core principles of branding, which once more are differentiation, value, information, and consistency. Keep those questions in mind. How is my brand going to be unique and different from all others? What value is my brand going to bring to my customers? How can I best inform my customers about what my brand stands for? How will I ensure that my brand's core value will remain consistent on all channels. This is the creating part that's exciting. You get to finally make your brand a reality. This process will require quite a bit of creativity and brainstorming. However, these are some of the rules for best practice which we will leverage in order to create a name that can communicate your mission, value, and offer as easily and effectively as possible. Firstly, there are 7 main types of brand names that you'll want to choose from. Descriptive. The brand name simply describes what the business is about. For example, Bank of America. Evocative. Evocative brand names are real words used as metaphors to suggest a particular experience to the customer. Let's look at some examples. Nike. Not only is it short and unmistakably unique, it is also the name of the Roman goddess of victory. Or let's take Amazon. Initially chosen because it starts with the first letter of the alphabet, but also because it represents the largest river in the world. Not a bad metaphor for a company that wants to be the largest flow of goods in the world. Invented. Names like Google or Sony are good examples of invented names that serve a good purpose. For example, the name Sony was chosen for the Western market as it resembled the word sound coming from the Latin sonus, making it a great, simple and unique name that still conveyed its core industry very well. Lexical. Lexical names are wordplays, rhymes, or funny combinations of words or letters. For example, Coca-Cola is a great lexical brand name, being not only unique and descriptive, but also rhyming in a jingle-like fashion. These features make lexical names particularly easy to remember. Acronyms. Brands like BP and KFC are good examples of acronyms. These are particularly useful when an established descriptive brand with a long name wants to find an easy way to stick more easily in their customer's mind. Geographic. Brands that rely on their geographical status as a value point often tend to adopt a geographic brand name. KFC is a good example of this, leveraging the stereotypical image of Kentucky as a farming state to create increased values in the eyes of the customer through farming expertise and, as such, higher food quality. Founder. This was the most common kind of branding for much of history, before large cities were a thing and most people were strangers to the good they were exposed to on a daily basis. People knew who was producing what in their local area, and as such relied on the reputation of the individual founder as a basis for quality and trust. Founder brand names are still used nowadays, of course, like McDonald's or Ralph Lauren. Which naming type is best for you? As you can imagine, this will completely depend on your brand strategy and your customer's profile. For instance, if your research shows that your opportunity lies in providing products that customers will value because of their local heritage, you might want to make it a geographic name. This is a creative process where there isn't a single path or golden rule to follow, but make sure to get a lot of input from different perspectives. Remember, it's not about what you think sounds good, but what brand name will best embody the ideas, values, and messages that you want your customers to understand. Creating your logo is arguably one of the most fun parts in the branding process, at least for artistic people, which I consider myself to be. It is also quite important. As the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and it is absolutely true when it comes to brands, and even more so on Amazon, where sellers have to pack as much information about their brand values and promises in as little space as possible. Designing a logo requires choosing a type of logo, font, and colors. Firstly, let's deconstruct a logo. A logo can be made of one or two elements or a combination of both. The first element is the logo mark, which consists of an image or a combination of shapes. The second element is a word mark, which is a text element, almost always the brand name. A combination of both is called a combination mark. Easy, right? Within these core elements, one can design different types of logos. Monogram logo or lettermark logo. These kinds of logo contain only the initials of the brand, sometimes put together into a stylized fashion to create a unique design. You may have it in a more sober style like the brand HP, where the letters are clear and distinct, or very stylized like LG or Sony's PlayStation brand. Wordmark logos. As you can probably tell from the name, these logos are made from a single or multiple words, most often the brand name itself. Pictorial logo. This is a simplified logo mark which often is used as a minimalistic symbol to convey brand presence without being too in your face. Think of Apple's minimalistic design as a good example of a pictorial logo. Combination logo. As the name suggests, this kind of logo is a combination mark, meaning it has both symbols or shapes along with text content. Brands like Burger King and Starbucks feature a combination logo. If you decide to have a lettermark or wordmark in your logo, you'll want to think about the font that you want to be using. You have two main categories of fonts: serifs and sans serifs. Serifs are small lines that are added to letters and are often used to make the font look more professional, authoritative, and old-fashioned, which means that they work well for brands that want to convey these feelings. The classic font Times New Roman, for example, which was a classic default on Microsoft Word until the more recent version, is a good example of a serif font. On the other side, you have sans serif fonts, or without serifs. These fonts look cleaner and more modern and are most used by brands that want to show that they are in the times and progressive. Most websites and apps nowadays use sans serif fonts for this very reason. Just like your brand name and logo, your tagline, should you decide to make one, as this is optional, will aim to communicate your brand's promises and values. Examples of known taglines are "Think different" from Apple and Nike's "Just do it." Both taglines exemplify perfectly what the brand stands for in 3 words or less. For Apple, its tagline shows that its core value lies in innovation and differentiation from its competitors, a promise which is then reflected through its unique products. In Nike's case, the tagline suggests effort and achievement, which lines up perfectly with its core brand identity, which is centered around stirring the desire to achieve athletic success, while also gently suggesting that this is possible to achieve using their product. A tagline should be short and concise. As we saw in the previous 2 examples, it can consist of as little as 2 words. A great tagline also doesn't just communicate a single message. It is still open enough to interpretation to allow for multiple ideas to strike the reader. For instance, "Just do it" can be interpreted as achieve your goals, as well as just buy our products. It is a literal call to action, a suppressor of hesitation. Let's check the football shoes section. I'm thinking of trying this sport, but I'm not sure. Just do it. Alright, well, the shoes are good, but expensive. Just do it. You get the idea. Walk into a Nike store and all of these taglines spread around the store subconsciously prime you for increased purchase behavior. Taglines are as useful on Amazon as any other platform, as there are plenty of spots to fit them. From your listing pictures, to your EBC, to your brand store, to your sponsored brand ads. Choosing the right colors for your brand is just as important as designing a good logo or tagline. While colors can easily be dismissed as being just for the sake of visual appeal, they are in fact extremely useful in communicating particular emotions that are in line with your desired brand image. Let's take a simple example. You've no doubt heard of red light districts before. Ever wondered why red is a prevalent color when it comes to seduction and arousal? Well, it turns out that actually just seeing the color red triggers a biological response that makes us perceive the colored object or person differently. For instance, several studies have shown that pictures of men and women wearing red clothes, red lipstick, or just had a red hue added to the picture were considered more attractive and appealing, which is thought to stem from the perceived increased blood flow to the skin surface, indicating both intensity and arousal. Similarly, green and blue have been shown to have a relaxing effect on most people, signifying nature, water, blue skies, and such. So how can you leverage this for your Amazon business and your brand? Let's go back to your desired brand identity. What concepts do you want to prime your customers with? Similarly, what emotions do you want your customers to feel when they interact with your brand and its products? Do you want them to feel aroused, excited, happy, relaxed, trusting? For example, for a brand that wants to brand itself as environmentally friendly, green would be a natural choice in terms of primary brand colors, while another brand that wants to position itself as luxurious could go with black and gold as primary colors. Once you've established this, you can create a color palette and look to apply those to your logo and your products. Don't choose too many colors. You want to have a maximum of 3 colors in your palette. Just like trying to cover too many positions in your market, choosing too many colors will make your brand look like a messy bag of Skittles without any specific identity. The meaning and emotions behind colors is, however, quite dependent on the region of the world. For instance, while yellow is associated with happiness, sunshine, and excitement in Western cultures, it is the color of death and mourning in many Latin cultures, which is why doing a holistic analysis of your customer's profile, including culture, is vital. This is the end of the course, so I hope that you have found it useful and that it helps you increase your sales on Amazon. If you want to learn more about marketing on Amazon, competitor analysis, pricing strategies, business modeling, and similar topics that help you increase your sales, for free of course, then I invite you to subscribe and also check out my website, themodernsellers.com, where you can find each lesson and the transcripts, all for free again. If you have any ideas, any queries, any comments, anything that you want to know, you can just post any question you might have in the comments below. As the channel is still quite small right now, I will try to answer all of the questions as soon as I can. So on that note, let's get selling.